You got into the safety business because you wanted to protect people, but somewhere along the way, the job started controlling your time, your schedule, your priorities, even your income potential. What if the expertise you've built over the years in the field can give you something more? More freedom, more control, more ownership of your future. I'm Sheldon Primus, the author of 7 Steps to Starting a Profitable Safety Consulting Business and the host of the Safety Consultant Podcast, with more than 350 episodes helping safety professionals become consultants and grow their career. Consulting changed my life. In fact, I'm a full-time RVer, and one consulting contract paid for my home I live in today. Now, I help safety professionals build their own consulting practice through bi-weekly coaching calls, accountability, and personal guidance. But this program isn't for everyone. Start with the Consultant Readiness Audit at sheldon.coach.
What if everything we thought we knew about safety was just interference? From the host of the Rated R Safety Show and the founder of Safety FM comes the complete Signal Transmission Trilogy, now available in one powerful edition. Safety, in my opinion, the book that started the conversation. Safety Mutation, where the boundaries of culture, systems, and belief begin to break. And now, Safety Transmission, the final piece of the signal. For the first time, all 3 books are together in one volume. The Signal Transmission Trilogy, Complete Edition. This isn't just about compliance. It's about consciousness. It's about decoding the way we think, lead, and live, inside and outside the system. Whether you've been following the signal since the beginning or you're just now tuning in, this is the version to own. Search Signal Trilogy on Amazon or visit safetyfm.com to get your copy now.
Day 3, no pay, no mail, no cheer. I tried to call, but no one's here. The lights are on, but the desk is bare. The vending machine, it ate my change. The world outside feels kinda strange. This shutdown's got me rearranged. Shutdown, shuffle, we're stuck in the groove. No one's dancing, no one can move. Shutdown, shuffle, what can we do? Day 3's a party, but it's overdue.
Hi, this is Jim from Safety Wars. Before we start the program, I want to make sure everyone understands that we often talk about OSHA and EPA citations, along with some other regulatory actions from other agencies, legal cases, and criminal activity. Everyone is innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. Proposed fines are exactly that, and they are often litigated, reduced, or vacated. We use available public records, news accounts, and press releases. We cannot warranty or guarantee the details of any of the stories we share, since we are not directly involved with these stories, at least not most of the time. Enjoy the show.
This show is brought to you by Safety FM.
Good evening, good morning, wherever you are. I mean, we do have listeners from all over the world. This is Jim Polzel on Safety FM with Safety Wars for Thursday, October 2nd. 2025. How's everybody doing out there? You lucked out this week. You got 3 programs. That means that nothing else happened to me. Preempt the program. How's that? So today, well, before I get there, how did you like last night's program? The government shutdown. I don't think anybody out there now on LinkedIn, it was, good people on LinkedIn, by the way, right? That follow the program that I follow. They say, well, this is what's going on with the government shutdown. Here, read this. What other program went out there and actually went through everything other than us? Right? I think you'd be hard pressed. Right? So we talked about MSHA, we talked about OSHA, and we talked about the EPA. I made a prediction here. And what was that prediction? It was, I said, wait until the politicians figure out and they get people to convince that they cannot live without certain, they can't live. They could live, let me rephrase it. They could live without certain government agencies. And so that is really the real danger here. So there are a lot of government organizations out there, government branches, things you've never heard of. I mean, until January this year, even people who've been following this stuff for almost their entire life, like me, there were government agencies that came out. We're getting cuts to this organization. We're giving cuts to this, and this is how it impacts us. I mean, I caused quite a ruckus here when I mentioned, well, maybe we shouldn't be collecting all this data for the census and just keep it to necessary data. I thought that was no, and I said, no, we have to question things. I thought it was going to be, non-controversial. Boy, did I get hate mail on that one. Oh, wow. I love it. Now you would think, well, no, just question. All I'm doing is questioning and explaining. Now we're into a situation, and I do believe I am allowed to share this under fair use. Number one, it's news. Number two, I'm commenting on it. Number three, it's from the president, Donald J. Trump. So here we go, on Truth Social. I have a meeting today with Russ Vaught, and this is from 11 hours ago. He of Project 25 fame, that's from the Heritage Foundation, by the way, to determine which of the many Democrat agencies, most of which are political scam, he recommends to be cut, and whether or not those cuts will be temporary or permanent. I can't believe the radical left Democrats gave me this unprecedented opportunity. They are not stupid people. So maybe this is their way of wanting to quietly and quickly make America great again, President Donald J. Trump. Now let me add to this. With this, I predicted this yesterday. I mean, you could have saw this coming a mile away. The real danger here is not the government shutdown. The real danger is, for a lot of these organizations, is we don't need you, right? Whether we like that or not, that is, let me repeat that again. The real danger is the public is going to at least think that we don't need you. Our lives are going on pretty well without you, right? However, the government, the federal government, is integrated into almost every part of our lives that we've grown dependent on it for statistical data. So, for example, Bureau of Labor Statistics is not updating their website, so we're not going to be talking about that tonight. It's usually on Thursday afternoon, in line with the Friday news cycle and the weekend news cycle. OSHA is still going to be enforcing things, right? A little smaller staff, maybe a slower response, maybe no technical stuff, but they're still there. Same thing with MSHA, same thing with the EPA. So, this is basically what it comes down to. I do know that the administration does listen to this show, right? Some people in the administration do. They listen to Safety FM. Maybe not this show, though, but I know this is a fact. Right? How do I know that? Because I was told that by people in the press office for a certain regulatory agency. That they listen to us here on everything. When you go and when you look on the system that we use to upload the podcast, we got 2 or 3 listeners right there in the Washington, D.C. area that download this. So we know, right, with that. I don't know what Jay Allen's results are, but I imagine that they're probably a hell of a lot more than here. But anyway. So let's mosey on over to X here. This is post from American from Deputy Secretary Sonderling. I mean, no, we're not getting press releases, but this is what we're getting. No, these are all political appointments are still working, right? They're not involved in the shutdown. American workers are being hurt by this government shutdown. It's time for Democrats to come to the table and get back to work for the American people. Secretary Lori Chavez DeRemer, the Democrat shutdown is hurting American workers. And this is also, hardworking Americans have been clear. They want Democrats to reopen the government. Our mission is unchanged. American workers first. Our mission is to put American workers first. We'll continue to fight the Democratic-led shutdown. And that's what's going on there with that. So, OSHA's routine safety and health. This means, so instead of looking out for hardworking Americans, Democrats have shut down the government to pander to the far left. This means U.S. oil must pause OSHA's routine safety and health inspection. Yeah, the routine stuff, the imminent danger ones and the fatalities, those are still there according to their paperwork. So I don't know exactly what they're saying because they get issued this crap in writing here. So the routine health and safety and health inspection may have been paused. However, imminent danger and fatality investigations are going on. Well, this is, the health inspection that prevent accidents. Okay, great. That prevents accidents, illnesses, and fatalities. Now, the thing is, it's really only the imminent ones, in my opinion, that imminent danger, right, stuff that they go out for that prevents things. I tell you what, most of the time when, using OSHA as a threat that they're going to come and get you, it's always been, and by the way, I'm not disparaging OSHA. I'm disparaging the people who do not fund OSHA. And it's both political parties. Right? OSHA is always like the bastard stepchild that never gets anything here. That gets a pittance of what they need. So we have millions of American workers, tens of 150 million American workers, something like that. We have like 2,000 people working for OSHA, and a lot of those people are just there for whistleblower cases. Because every whistleblower case practically in America goes through OSHA. Right? And the Democrats, are saying the same thing about the Republicans. Those darn Republicans, that darn Donald Trump, he's doing blah, 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 blah. And it's like, really? Really? You're going to continue to... why don't we all get together and do this? And I have other stories here. So let's talk about what happened today. Hold on. I got to adjust this chair. It's driving me nuts. Hold on. These hotel chairs, they stink here. So let me put the camera back on here. That's more like it. So let's talk about yesterday or today, right? So I get a phone call way after the program airs, and it's from a longtime client and who's somebody who I consider a friend, and she's like a family member almost. And I've been doing training for her company since about 2008. Under the old company I used to have, and then I brought her over to the new company, and she worked with me on and off for over the years. I was doing safety and some other stuff. She has a supply company, for like a temp agency almost, right? But anyway, I get a phone call. Hey, Jimmy. This is what my problem is. I have 7 people I'm sending out to a job site. And I won't mention the area, but it's a job site. And we are the subcontractor of a subcontractor. Says, okay, so you're like a tier 2, tier 3 contractor. She says, yeah, I'm a tier, right? I'm down there. And I said, so basically the general contractor is requiring everybody to have 40-hour training. I said, okay, 40-hour training. Okay, I got it. Thank God you have that, right? You got it a number of years ago. Yeah, but they want us to have certificates for the 8-hour refresher, which you've been doing for many years for us. They want those certificates for every year because they don't want to see a lapse. I said, that's my understanding, at least, and my reading of the regulations and how everybody I know who handles this. Your worker has got to have 40-hour HAZWA for 1910-120 training, right, for a certain work out there. However, let's say that you lapse in the 8-hour refresher every year. So you're off by a month or two, or maybe you left the industry, you come back 2 or 3 years later. As far as OSHA is concerned, that as long as you're doing the same kind of work that 40-hour certificate was, so for example, you were doing maritime response. As long as you get hired and you're doing maritime response, and all you need is like an 8-hour refresher, and to make sure that, to update that and make everything current, but also it has to be relevant to what you're doing. So you can't go from like maritime to a shovel work on a hazardous waste site. And that's usually not so bad. You can convert the person over that. But what's really bad is when you go from land operations to maritime operations, right, on the water. You still need the OSHA 40 hour, but that's not relevant. So I would argue, hey, you need more than that 8-hour refresher. You're probably going to need a conversion over that. But you have to retain the 40-hour course and blah, blah, blah. What they're requiring is more than what OSHA is required. I said, well, I could go and spend half the night of doing this, and I spent like half the night generating the old certificates, finding them on email, on hard drives, in the cloud, and we got everything together, and we got everything through. And I said, not for nothing. What's the real story here? Well, she says to me that, the people that we are working with, they're having problems with their labor force. I said, yeah, no shit. Everybody's having a problem with their labor force. Especially if you have a company that has reliance on day laborers, you're having a problem with the labor force. Especially if your labor force, because of COVID, and like I predicted 15 years ago, I said when people wake up and realize how much they're being screwed, they're going to really have problems here. And that's what happened during the pandemic, where you had 3 months, 2-3 months of nobody working. Some people longer. Well, now they had time to do it, and now it's like, man, I've been screwed all my life. I got to rethink what my life is. Right? So everybody's having problems. See, everyone who I talk to. Why? Because the labor force, and I have a story here we might get to, the labor force is not putting up with getting taken advantage of, or as they view getting taken advantage of. And a lot of the models, especially the smaller companies, have been built on taking advantage of people. Is what it is. On the other hand, the worker does not know how to assert for themselves, does not know how to advocate for themselves, does not know negotiation theories, does not know game theory, does not know their rights as a worker for a safe and healthful workplace free of recognized hazards. Average worker does not know that. You listen to this program, you're going to know it, but you go and take an OSHA outreach course in person with a live person there and not on an LMS system, because I've had to take a couple of them on an LMS system. They're going to tell you what your rights are. It's in the first hour. Usually. Doesn't have to be in the first, it can be in the last hour. Right? You just do it legally and within the guidelines. But what's my point here is that regardless of the cause, workers are not taking crap anymore. So now when you hire them, I said, now back to the original story, I said, so what's the issue? They're having problems with the labor force not wanting to wear basic PPE and follow basic procedures. So I said, okay, so again, signal theory with Jay Allen. Check it out, right? We'll run the commercial after this. Right, perfect segue here we're going to go into. So, I said the problem here is this. They're blaming the worker for whatever the problem is, whether it's the PPE compliance, whether it's decon procedure for compliance for low gravity hazards, right? That's right. That's where you usually get the decon issue. Whether it's quality of work, amount of work, the whole thing, right? You're blaming the worker for that. And as we know, blame fixes nothing. But what's the reality? The signal is that what they should be sending is why are we hiring companies that hire workers that are non-compliant? They're not qualified, don't have the work ethic, they do not have that. It's the companies that are hiring them. Right? If you're going to be a hard worker and everything, you're going to probably get paid more. You're probably going to be more employable. You're probably going to be a happier individual, at least in my experience. Why are they hiring workers? Why are they putting workers in the field that where the managers are letting them get away with everything? The managers are not straightening them out. Again, this is a management thing. Why aren't they complying? Is it a systems problem? Maybe they're not wearing PPE because you're not supplying them with PPE. Perhaps they're not following procedures because there is no established procedure. Perhaps you as a manager did not set up a system or work with your workforce to set up a system. There's a lot of stuff going on, but it does not point to the worker. It points to the managers. And what kind of business model the owners of the company and the C-suite has. I walked into very large companies that a lot of you have heard of, and their thing is we're going to hire idiots so they'll listen to what we say, and that's it. And we hopefully they'll listen to what they say, and guess what? If they get hurt, guess what? It's their fault, and screw them. So this all comes back to managers. And what happens? They blame the safety person. The safety person normally does not have the authority to hire, fire, discipline. We're going to go through this again. Hire, fire, discipline, manage, reward, plan out the work, anything like that. So we know right off the bat it's not the safety person's fault. Where does it go back to? The management. Got to get into the head of the C-suite. So there was an oil refinery back at home way back in the day, and I wish I would have kept the wanted ad. They put it on one of the online job boards, right? The job things, right? And classified ads. It was you have to influence and lead without authority. Probably the most honest thing. Well, you have no authority, guess what? No one's going to listen to you in most cases. So now we're left with, on the org chart, the health and safety professional is off to the side somewhere, and everything goes through the management. So the managers have to be the ones that are out there doing things. You cannot be a donuts and coffee manager. So what's the solution? Their solution, this company, was we're going to, and you can see either an attorney told them to do this, or maybe they're an attorney or something like that, someone with a lot of schooling, because what's the solution? Paperwork. Paperwork does not, are you listening? Paperwork does not prevent accidents. The thought that goes into that paperwork may prevent an accident. The thought, the actual thing of going through the whole, looking at the checklist, for example, and, matching things up, that maybe. But the paperwork in itself is paperwork. How do you know that they're not pencil whipping it? So in this case, how do you know that people are just Now, with the we have to make sure they're all trained and they're consistently trained. They're all up to date, and it's all blah 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 blah. And okay, they got their training in 2014. Now it's 2025. We have to make sure they have 11 8-hour refreshers. Blah blah blah. That's not going to get anybody to not get hurt. That's not going to not get releases. Chemical releases, illnesses, or anything else. It's out there setting standards, getting people into that skills mode as much as you can, the Jens Rasmussen skills mode, realizing safety is not numbers, it's controls, it's guards, it's resilience, it's a lot of things, but primarily safeguards and resilience. Hiring the right people for the job, supervising them, and doing all of that. That's what saves lives. That's what prevents injuries. And everything else. And I had somebody recently from a government agency look at me like, what? You mean to tell me that having things set up in a low attention, high familiarity environment where people are basically on autopilot means that there's lower error rates? I want them to be thinking about what they're doing all the time. I said, then you plan on having accidents all the time? Because that's what you're going to have, especially doing the type of work we were doing. Well, you're going to have to prove that to me, Jim. Okay. Now, it's just like back in the day, we had Canadians on the job. Not that I'm picking on Canadians, but a Canadian company had never worked under OSHA. Well, you're going to have to explain to us what all the rules are. Okay. This is pre-internet days. See that stack of books? Yeah. I said, I tell you what, give me $100. I'll hold on to it. You take all those books and you read them tonight. And tell me how you're going to be, how much safer you are. Right? And you got to know all of them. Well, that's ridiculous, all those rule books. I said, I tell you, I'll just give you the Code of Federal Regulations for construction. Read that whole book. Come back tomorrow and, that's unreasonable. I said, safety is not a rule book. Safety is not paperwork. It's caring for your workers, having a moral obligation, having a moral responsibility. That's what safety is. And leadership, right? Maybe we'll redo our leadership stuff here. Yeah, probably a good time to do it, especially with all the stuff that we learned from books here. So let's go right now to commercial break, and we're going to, here we go.
What if everything we thought we knew about safety was just interference? From the host of the Rated R Safety Show and the founder of Safety FM comes the complete signal transmission trilogy, now available in one powerful edition. Safety, in my opinion, the book that started the conversation. Safety Mutation, where the boundaries of culture, systems, and belief begin to break. And now, Safety Transmission, the final piece of the signal. For the first time, all three books are together in one volume. The Signal Transmission Trilogy, Complete Edition. This isn't just about compliance. It's about consciousness. It's about decoding the way we think, lead, and live, inside and outside the system. Whether you've been following the signal since the beginning or you're just now tuning in, this is the version to own. Search Signal Trilogy on Amazon or visit safetyfm.com to get your copy now.
This is gonna blow your mind. There's a new daytime talk show on your local cable access station. What happens when safety, scandal, and heartbreak collide? Welcome to Safety Wars, the talk show. Today's episode is a doozy. Imagine confronting your unsafe supervisor who just happens to be your ex-wife's new hubby. Talk about a powder keg. But wait, there's more. We've got an exclusive interview with a corporate exec who's taken out life insurance policies on his riskiest workers, hoping to cash in on a deadly mishap. Yup, you heard that right. It's a real-life plot twist you can't make up. Tune in as Jim Posel, CSP, our very own Jerry Springer of safety, dives deep into this explosive confrontation. Sparks will fly and secrets will be exposed. Catch the full episode on Safety Wars on YouTube and your favorite podcast platform. Don't miss out on the drama that could save your life. Like and share now, and stay safe, folks.
OSHA recordables, catastrophic losses, environmental disasters. You want answers? So do I. This is Jim Posel with Safety Wars.
That's my daddy!
Safety Wars is streaming now.
SafetyFM.com.
So we are back. How's everybody doing? Now, so in short, we predicted this. Now, the real danger in the shutdown is not the government services you're going to miss or the shutdown. It's the stuff that's not going to start back up, apparently. And some of that may be good, some of them may be bad. I'm just calling balls and strikes, but I know for certain people it's going to be very, very bad because that will have a reduction of force there and everything else. I think part of the speech that Secretary Hegseth gave the other day to all of those generals, those 800 generals and senior enlisted folks, and from all branches of the service, I think that we're headed to war. That's my next prediction. Some might say we're technically at war in the Caribbean, because the president today declared those cartels like terrorist groups or something along those lines. And I tell you, it's not going to be... we're in for a ride here, folks. And as I say, always with disaster preparedness and everything, and emergency preparedness, what they do in Washington, and name your state capital, whether it's Harrisburg, Trenton, Albany, right? Any of those. Or name your state capital. You can't control those people once they're in office. They're in office. There's not a hell of a lot you can do. That's why elections are so important. And so what happens? You got to band together with starting with your household, then moving into your family, then moving into your maybe the street you live on, and then your community at large, and then moving on out to that relies on that you have to rely on, that you have to go out there and get along with. Being an introvert and not wanting to deal with people, not developing your social skills or anything like that to try to call on help for everybody with your local community is not a good thing with that. I'm not saying be friendly with everybody, take slim shady characters or anything like that, but it's working together in that community, getting along with people, working together peacefully. And it's kind of hard to do that when the politicians have everybody at each other's throat. So this is from the Washington Post today. All right, so in case you're a new listener, we're getting new listeners all the time. If it's a government website, we're allowed to share it. If it's a non-governmental website, we usually, almost overwhelmingly, amount of the time, we don't share that here. So you get to look at my handsome aura here on video. We asked 1,000 Americans who they blame for the shutdown. And here's what they said. It's from the Washington Post today. How concerned are Americans about the partial shutdown in the federal government, and who do they blame for causing it? The Washington Post texted a nationally representative sample of 1,010 people on Wednesday to ask. The Post's poll finds significantly more Americans blame President Donald Trump and congressional Republicans for the shutdown than Democrats, though many say they're not sure. people expressed moderate concern about the shutdown's impact at this early stage, with some concern the most common answer. A large majority support Democrats' call to extend federal health insurance subsidies in general, though just under half support the party demanding this if it extends to the government shutdown. So here we have, who do you blame? And it's 30% blame Democrats, 47% blame Republicans, and 23% say they're not sure. Okay. Right? And again, they don't go, right? If that's what the question was, that they're not using the whole context. There are a lot of reasons why the Democrats did not vote for this situation. And there's a lot of reasons why the government and the Republicans are not giving in on this. One of them is subsidizing health care for people who are ineligible for it. The way it is. Again, elections have consequences. And in 2008, 2009, 2010, the Republicans did not go out, and they're pissed off over Obamacare. That's because the people who were involved in 2008, 2009, 2010 did not fight hard enough, did not make their case good enough, and had a complete and total lack of leadership on these issues. And then they ran on it for the next 8 years, riling everybody up. We're going to vote against Obamacare, blah, 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 blah. And when they had the chance to get rid of it, they didn't get rid of it. So now we're forced. We have on one hand, people no voting, regardless of what your opinion is on Obamacare. This is objective here. Regardless of that. Right? This is what happens long term here with these health, with all this other stuff. This is what happens long term, right? With this, where now, and so you've been subsidizing, and now you're going to take away the subsidy, and then you're going to wonder why everybody's pissed while we have these problems with shutdowns. My opinion, Jimmy's opinion, not anybody else's here. My opinion, they should have never. There were other solutions that they could have had with the same results, where everybody could have gotten along here and not been at each other's throats. Were there problems with healthcare? Oh yeah, no, the COVID-19 situation proved that beyond a shadow of a doubt. They need to be fixed, yeah, but not always the best fix. Here we have from Just the News. Government shutdown will postpone release of Labor Department's September jobs report. And this is a story by Natalia Mittelstadt. Nice German name there, Mittelstadt. Right, Middle City. The Labor Department will delay its release of economic data if the government shuts down. This is from the other day, possibly postponing its monthly job reports, including September's due out on Friday. And they mentioned the contingency plan that we talked about the other day. This is the Bureau of Labor Statistics website right here. Right? Announcement, suspension of federal government services. This website is currently not being updated due to the suspension of federal government services. The last update of the site was Wednesday, October 1st. Updates to the site will start again when the federal government resumes operations. Right? So, do this. Again, long-term stuff. It's not the short-term stuff where people are screwing up on. It's long-term stuff. Right? Little things like the commercial used to say. Little things mean a lot. Okay. Trump sees unprecedented opportunity. We covered that already. Save more money. Right, for cutting things. OpenAI Sora 2 generates realistic videos of people shoplifting. OpenAI has released a new smartphone app, this is Futurism.com, currently invite-only, designed to rival TikTok with an infinite barrage of AI slop. The app accompanies the company's latest text to video and audio AI generator, Sora 2, which it claims It's more physically accurate and realistic, more controllable than prior systems. A 2-minute clip for celebrating an announcement was met with predominantly negative reactions, with netizens dismissing it as unsettling and soulless. Right? Again, this is like The Running Man, the 1980s edition. Arnold Schwarzenegger, right? Where they have actual videos all made up, right? That are believable. Here we have some news from the UK Telegraph. Tomahawk missiles could change the Ukraine war and bring Moscow in range. Frustration of Putin's stalling could mean Trump gives green light for Zelensky to use high-tech weapons. God help us all. When an American submarine unleashed 30 Tomahawks on an Iranian nuclear facility, Donald Trump hailed their pinpoint accuracy and destructive power. Each of the cruise missiles had hit within a foot of where they were supposed to hit. The U.S. president boasted. I don't know if that's accurate or not. His claims were backed up by satellite images which showed that scorched earth of where at least 16 buildings once stood at the Isfahan nuclear facility. Right, so Zelensky wants Tomahawk missiles. Turn up the pressure. Let's see what the hell happens. Daring refinery raids are bringing the war back to Russia. Ukraine's strikes on energy facilities now with U.S. help could be a pivotal moment in the war. The glow that lit up the central Russian shot, this is at telegraph.co.uk, they hit the Yaroslav oil refinery, Russia's oldest and fifth largest, went up in flames just before 6:30 a.m. And when was this story? Today, right? Regional governor immediately denied that it had anything to do with Ukrainian drones, blaming the blaze on a technical fault. That is always possible. Crisis at the pump. At least 16 of Russia's 38 refineries have been hit since the start of August. All right. California man accused of decapitating a sea lion. Why would you do that? I like sea lions. They're like my favorite animal. Seals and sea lions. I love them. California man accused of decapitating a sea lion, putting head in plastic bag. All lies, he says. When a certain person took his daughter for an outing at the beach, he did not imagine would result in the federal government circulating a photo of him seeking to identify a suspect accused of sawing off a sea lion's head and carrying it away in a plastic bag. On Monday, the NOAA of Fisheries Law Enforcement Office released a photo of the person and offered a $20,000 reward for information leading to an arrest, civil penalty, or criminal conviction in the decapitation of a sea lion. Right? And the next day, the agency took down a photo and said that no mammal parts have been taken from the beach after all. The person, who lives in the central California town of Hanford, says he didn't decapitate the animal. He says this is bizarre. He said the investigation stems from a miscommunication with a fellow beachgoer that took place while he and his teenage daughter, who was interested in marine biology, were looking at a dead seal. Right? The person who reported the incident to the authorities has a different memory of the event. She says she confronted the guy and his daughter after she saw him leaning over the sea lion and prodding it with a knife. In a video, the person recorded the incident. She asked him what he needs a dead seal for, to which his fans, "I told you we're just taking the head." "For what?" "The skull." "To dry it?" "Yes." So I guess he was making like a European mount out of it. He told the Los Angeles Times on Wednesday he doesn't recall exactly what he said, but it's possible he said, "I was just going to take the head," as a smart-ass sarcastic remark. Yeah, I know. Basically, if you do something like that, you're in deep doo-doo. Oh, yeah, you're in deep groove now. So, this is from the New York Times. Right, and let's remember, Finland. Most of our foreign listeners in the last year have been from Finland because of, right, they're pushing huge amounts of emergency preparedness. And for whatever reason, I made the list. So thank God for people in Finland. However, we're talking about Denmark. So why don't, you people in Finland send everything over to Denmark? I know sometimes you don't get along. At least that's what I hear from people. Just do that and become Safety Wars fans and subscribe. A run on canned mackerel and emergency radios. The reason? Drones. The Danish public has been unsettled by the way of mysterious drone incursions, which has underscored the country's vulnerability. One late last week, Henrik Avilgaard, with 2 A's, a Danish photographer, stepped out on his porch to have a smoke. He lives in I can't pronounce it, Vestbjerg, Vestbjerg, a little town in northern Denmark near a military base. While he was enjoying his cigarette, he said he saw something whistling across the sky, flashing red and green. Half an hour later, he spotted another one. Right? It was one of the mysterious drone flights that have rattled Denmark in the past 10 days. So people are getting... so what are they doing? They're doing prepping. I guess they like their canned mackerel. I never cared for canned... No, you see, canned mackerel was my dad. Right? I was like, but apparently they like it. And they're selling all different types of camping food. And everything else. So people are freaking out in Europe. I mean, turn up the volume. Are they being manipulated? That's what it is. Manipulation. So today in the UK, right, a person, allegedly a citizen, a British citizen of Syrian descent, was shot by officers 7 minutes after driving towards a building, a mosque, right, because it's Jewish holidays this week, and he drove towards the building and stabbed several people. At least 2 people have died and 4 others were injured in an assault police have labeled as an act of terrorism. 3 suspects are currently in custody and have been arrested on suspicion of commission for preparation and instigation of acts of terrorism. They are 2 men in their 30s and a woman in their 60s. So this is what the hell's going on with all these religious attacks on religious things? We had the LDS church over the weekend get attacked, right? Last week, not this past week, the weekend before. No, was it? Yeah, this weekend. You had the Catholic church summer camp, apparently, or was its first week of school a couple of weeks ago, get attacked. You had Charlie Kirk get attacked, presumably one in part because of his Christian beliefs. And by the way, let's look at Africa. Just Google Africa. You don't have to believe me. Just Google it. And attacks on Christians. Whole-scale genocides in some of those areas, but it doesn't really make the news. Some would argue Israel's attack on Gaza and on the Palestinian state, I don't think that necessarily holds water. Guys, gotta live together peacefully. All right, if you want to convert someone, do it through persuasion, not through the sword. Not through a campaign of terror. All right. So we mentioned this before. Trump is determined the U.S. is now in a war with drug cartels. This is from New York Times. A notice calls to people in the U.S. military recently killed on suspicion of drug smuggling in the Caribbean Sea. Unlawful combatants. President Trump has decided the United States is engaged in a formal armed conflict with drug cartels his team has labeled terrorist organizations and that suspected smugglers for such groups are unlawful combatants. The administration said in a confidential notice to Congress this week. Notice was sent to several congressional committees and obtained by the New York Times. It adds new detail to the administration's thinly articulated legal rationale for why 3 U.S. military strikes and the President ordered on boats in the Caribbean Sea last month. Killing all 17 people on board should be seen as lawful rather than murder. Right, houses of worship tighten security among. Right, we mentioned this. No, rise in religious attacks. Now this is pretty funny here. Education Department employees surprised to find that their email automatically changed and blamed Democrats for the shutdown. Five furloughed employees told NBC News, this is from NBC News, they had put nonpartisan out-of-office messages, only to see they were changed without permission to partisan ones. Employers can do that. I've had an employer do that. Right? Education Department employees furloughed this week discovered their email accounts had been manipulated while they were out of the office to include partisan talking points that blame the government shutdown on Democrats. So I want to hear, what were they? Education officials initially sent employees templates of nonpartisan out-of-office wording to use in their emails. Several employees they used that language earlier the week. Only find what they found were furloughed. Found that when they were furloughed, someone had changed it. Okay, so what were they? Right. On Wednesday, NBC News reported that some employees of federal agencies are being offered partisan language, blaming Democrats for the shutdown to use as their out-of-office messages. What were the emails? What did they say? Doesn't say. So how do we know that they were partisan? I'm sorry, I have to question that from now on, especially with all the crap that's going on out there. Here's another disaster preparation. This is from the dailymail.co.uk. Right to arms. Frenzied conservatives invest millions in panic rooms, bulletproof cars, and robot guards triggered by Charlie Kirk's assassination. Spooked conservatives are investing in drones, gun-toting robots, and armor-plated bedroom suites in a frenzied scramble for safety in the wake of Charlie Kirk's assassination. Kirk's September 10th killing on a Utah college campus sent shockwaves to the right, prompted many of the nation's most outspoken public figures to pour millions into fortress-like security measures. Influenced TV pundits and podcasts are canceling events while they consult, going on and on. Okay. They're saying, no, well, this is a legitimate threat, blah, 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 blah. Okay, let me explain something to you. Because, again, this is not what they're putting on the news. Right? What they don't mention here. To go and make this level of preparation, you got to have a hell of a lot of disposable cash around. And this is like the next level of disaster preparation is something like this. Well, you're getting ready for what I call a scenario 3 or 4 on this, where you're going to be long-term up to 30 days or maybe beyond 30 days with this. And once you get beyond 30 days, you're dealing with off-the-grid living, right, with that, or rural living of some sort. So what preparation did they have before this? And how many people had preparations before this? No. So maybe you don't have a safe room or this and that. How many people are armed to the teeth? How many people have they have tornado shelters that are doubling as a some type of a safe room or something like that? How many of these people have all different other types of preparation before they get to this point? So, in other words, I'm just putting numbers out of the air. If they sell 1,000, is there an analog out there? Or if they sell 1,000 of these, this type of security stuff, this level of security, 1,000 people get it, does that mean that there's another 75 or 80 or 100,000 that want something like this and are prepared? I don't know. What's the demand? Yeah, the demand is, well, what exactly is the demand? Because if we're seeing, now I tell you what, no, these are not the people you have to worry about doing this. How about all the other people out there? And by the way, as a former coworker of mine said, Jim, you're conservative. Of course you're going to be advocating this. I said, well, 2.7 million people are advocating for this, right? Roughly in the country. Well, up to about 10 million people, roughly, are in the prepper movement here. And he says, what we don't talk about is that in the Democratic communities, in the liberal communities, we're just as much armed to the teeth here. It's not just you guys. Oh, okay. So, again, a lot of armed people are armed out there, whether it's their grandfather's old 22 long rifle that hasn't been fired in 30 years, that's still operational, or if it's someone who just bought something off the street last week. A lot of these were legally last week. Guess what? There's a lot of stuff out there. What's there not a lot of? Not a lot of ammunition. The Trump administration is planning to roll out the first tranche of bailout payments for farmers in the coming weeks, likely using billions of dollars in funding from an internal USDA account, according to 3 people with direct knowledge. But it won't be enough. USDA's, this is from Politico, Commodity Credit Corporation Fund, which President Donald Trump previously tapped to provide $28 billion in farm aid during his first term, trade war with China, has just $4 billion left in the account. Right? So they're looking to bail people out. Let's see how this is. Again, it's a national security issue, having enough food. So I don't want to cover that. No on that. Here's a safety issue here. 2 Delta planes collide, ripping off wing while taxiing at LaGuardia Airport, as passenger describes moment of flight's absolutely smashed. 2 Delta jets absolutely smashed into each other on the runway at LaGuardia Airport Wednesday night, according to authorities and terrified passengers. The saga unfolded when the wing of an aircraft carrying 32 people that was departing for Roanoke, Virginia, suddenly collided with the fuselage of an aircraft arriving from Charlotte, with 61 people aboard just before 10 p.m. Their right wing clipped the nose on the cockpit. Oh, holy crap. They got pictures here. This is like extensive damage here. Looks like to me. Thank God they were on the ground, but we remember this stuff, right? So this is from Vox.com. Democrats are doing more to resist Trump than voters think. From Christian Paz, P-A-Z. The government shutdown that began on Wednesday might have been one of the most anticlimactic developments yet. President Donald Trump and congressional Republicans were never going to negotiate, and Democrats had just about every incentive to obstruct. I think that's a pretty apt description here. And fueling that Democratic motive is a furious base begging their leaders to mount a more visible and inspiring opposition to Trump. They already think Democrats blew it once when they provided the votes to pass a Republican spending bill to avoid a shutdown. Caving again would be unforgivable. The truth, however, is that Democrats both in and outside of Congress actually have tried to resist and obstruct. What have they been doing? They've been doing here, they list 4 things. Filibusters in the Senate, right? A tool to force unlimited debate and delay in the passage of the bill. Roll call votes in the Senate, which require individual members and to cast votes instead of operating under unanimous consent. In other words, does it sound like everyone's there, right? Votes one way or another. Speaking time, which is unlimited in the Senate on most things, similar to a filibuster, and which is unlimited for the majority of the and minority leaders in the House. They call it a magic moment, a magic minute. Discharge petitions, which are a procedural tool in the House, move or a bill or resolution out of a committee, bypassing leadership and directly to the floor for a vote. Lawmakers also get the bully puppet of a committee hearings and confirmation to garner attention and sway public opinion. So, yeah, there's people going back and forth. Here's another one from Vox from Peter Turchin. Turchin. Turchin, I guess. Hundreds of societies have been in crises like ours, and expert explains how they got out. Let's see here. In the United States, the MAGA movement, led by President Donald Trump, has seized power. Political violence is rising. Nice how they linked it to President Trump, but it's actually going the other way more. According to the news. Political violence is rising by several measures. Violent riots, anti-government demonstration in the U.S. has now experienced its highest level of turbulence and political conflict in the last 100 years. What lies ahead? Right? Rather extensive, right? The wealth pump undermines the stability, meaning that, according to this analysis, the term describes a set of conditions, economic and political, that transfer wealth from the broad base of the population to the elite. Yeah, well, we've been seeing that for an awful long time. Right? Causes growing unpopular discontent. The wealth pump creates too many wealthy elites, more than there are high power positions. The wealth pump creates too many youths pursuing not just college, but even more advanced degrees and escapes in the hopes of escaping looming precarity, whatever that is. And then this all leads to stability. How do we end this? Right? Collapsing labor supply drove up real wages, reversing the wealth pump. Okay, so rising wages. 1/3 of the 30 Years' War was another one. Killed off more than 1/3 of the German population, resetting the cultural, structural conditions that ended the wealth pump. There are other ways of doing this that are not so bloody, right? Again, it all comes down to voting, right? Long story short. So, for safety wars, I know, well, I should have done a little bit more with that article there. So, for safety wars, this is Jim Posel. We will come back, God willing, this weekend. If not, have a great weekend. We usually do 3 programs a week. If you're around New City this weekend, Clarkstown, New York, absolutely go out and check out all the garage sales out there. Keep an eye on social media. For Safety Wars and for the Safety FM Network, this is Jim Posel. Have a great night.
The views and opinions expressed on this podcast are those of the host and its guest and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of the company. Examples of analysis discussed within this podcast are only examples. They should not be utilized in the real world as the only solution available, as they are based only on very limited and dated open source information. Assumptions made within this analysis are not reflective of the position of the company. No part of this podcast may be reproduced, stored in a retrieval system, or transmitted in any form or by any means, mechanical, electronic, recording, or otherwise, without prior written permission of the creator of the podcast, Jay Allen.
You got into the safety business because you wanted to protect people, But somewhere along the way, the job started controlling your time, your schedule, your priorities, even your income potential. What if the expertise you've built over the years in the field can give you something more? More freedom, more control, more ownership of your future. I'm Sheldon Primus, the author of 7 Steps to Starting a Profitable Safety Consulting Business and the host of the Safety Consultant Podcast, with more than 350 episodes helping safety professionals become consultants and grow their career. Consulting changed my life. In fact, I'm a full-time RVer, and one consulting contract paid for my home I live in today. Now, I help safety professionals build their own consulting practice through bi-weekly coaching calls, accountability, and personal guidance. But this program isn't for everyone. Start with the Consultant Readiness Audit at sheldon.coach.
What if everything we thought we knew about safety was just interference? From the host of the Rated R Safety Show and the founder of Safety FM comes the complete Signal Transmission Trilogy, now available in one powerful edition. Safety, in my opinion, the book that started the conversation. Safety Mutation, where the boundaries of culture, systems, and belief begin to break. And now, Safety Transmission, the final piece of the signal. For the first time, all 3 books are together in one volume. The Signal Transmission Trilogy, Complete Edition. This isn't just about compliance. It's about consciousness. It's about decoding the way we think, lead, and live, inside and outside the system. Whether you've been following the signal since the beginning or you're just now tuning in, this is the version to own. Search Signal Trilogy on Amazon or visit safetyfm.com to get your copy now.